who is a celebrity you lost all respect for? Steven Seagal. I liked some of his movies when he was popular. The stories that have emerged in the past several years let us all know he's an absolute piece of crap. There's an AMA on Reddit where he was promoting a new movie or something. As it turns out, with most AMAs with celebs, it was his publicist. But the main thing was everyone was asking him about how he was a dick and man. The stories were eye-opening for someone who didn't know about him. UK, London, here. Used to work in a high-end cocktail bar/cinema in a posh area of London. We had a share of celebrities. The worst. Kendall Jenner did not know the word thank you or please and verbally abused one of the staff members, saying things like, "This is why you earn $2 an hour." Peter Jackson refused to move for a staff member carrying a drink at seat service in the cinema screen, and when the poor 18-year-old tripped and spilled the slightest drop, complained to the manager, me, and wanted the kid fired. Vanessa Feltz, probably only known in the UK, kicked off because a staff member didn't know who she was and said as she reviewed films for The Sun, British tabloid, that it would be beneficial for us to give her free ice cream. When we pointed out that it made no difference to us if she liked Star Wars or not, she threw a temper tantrum. However, they aren't all bad. Nicholas Hoult, super down to earth and low key, tipped the bartender 20. Emma Watson, much the same as above, never made a fuss. Also would happily chat with the staff about anything and everything. Jude Law ordered at the bar like everyone else, but was getting hassled by some fans, so when I told him to go take a seat and did bring his drinks over, he was so thankful and apologetic he tipped well and chatted for a bit about how the service industry can be so tough. Clive Owen, one of the most polite people I've ever served. So thankful to hear good things about Jude Law. I've adored that man since I first saw him in The Holiday and have been a big fan ever since. He's definitely one of my go-to celebrity crushes if people ask. Meg Ryan, also on the set of In the Cut. I worked on it for 2 weeks and we were all told not to make eye contact with her. About a week in, a woman was walking by and started to tell Meg how much she loved her. Meg starts snapping her fingers off toward the distance. Her assistant comes running and literally opens a huge golf umbrella in the lady's face so Meg could walk the other way. Seemed like they had practiced this move. Geez, between this and the top comment on Billy Crystal, the set of When Harry Met Sally must have been a nightmare. Yeah, this thread really tainted one of my favorite movies, lol. Billy Crystal. He kicked me out of my seats at a Lewis Black stand-up show. Literally stood over me and was like, "These are my seats." I sort of laughed at him, had my tickets in hand, double checked they were correct, and was like, "Sorry, I'm in the correct seat." He stood there and insisted, "No, these are mine, you gotta go." Lewis had started, and I didn't want to cause a scene, so we got up and walked over to the aisle and the usher goes, "Ugh, has been so difficult tonight." They gave us box seats. Still good, but we had like third row seats in the center. Can't watch City Slickers or Monsters Incorporated without hating on him. Lol. What a dick. I wouldn't have moved. I wouldn't either. In the argument I just had with Billy Crystal in my head, I assure you that I stood up for myself. Called him a cunt and everything. But in real life, in a surprise moment, I'd probably move if an insane Bill Crystal demanded it. I just couldn't see being able to process all that so quickly. Oprah. My sister told me about this young kid that was kidnapped and abused daily, but one day years later escaped and made it home to their family. Oprah wanted to do an interview and the family declined. So Oprah shows up at their house with TV crew and equipment. Edit. My most upvoted comment ever is about Oprah. Fuck me. I find Oprah so full of self-importance. She'll interview a celebrity, but always twist it around to be about her. Oh, you made a movie with Tom Cruise. That reminds me of when my dear friend the Dalai Lama asked me to stay at his Malibu beach house, and John Travolta flew us there in his own private jet sorta shit. Reminds me of Tahani from The Good Place. Tyra Banks. In my preteen years, I would watch her talk show every weekday. She was my idol. As a teen, I was more interested in America's Next Top Model. Recently, it was pointed out to me just how toxic a lot of Tyra's content was that I watched 10 to 17 years ago. I don't want to list it off, but there are videos about her problematic challenges in ANTM and insensitive things on her talk show. She also founded an MLM, which is never good, and it failed. I occasionally watched her as a tween as well, and one of her segments stuck with me so distinctly that I could never watch her shit again after it. She had a mother and daughter on the show, and had people in the audience guess who was the mom and who was the daughter, because the mom looked quite young. And shock of shocks, nearly the entire audience voted saying that the mom was actually the daughter and vice versa. The daughter immediately burst into tears, and when the conversation for the segment started, it was readily apparent that the mom had gotten a fuck ton of plastic surgery, so she looked young when she was literally just sitting there not moving. However, as soon as her face started moving, the Real Housewives-ness became apparent, and she was obviously the mom. Same goes for the daughter. She was very evidently the younger one when she started speaking, but she hadn't had a lot of plastic surgery and her features just didn't look young. Even to this day it fucks me up, because I know talk shows aren't exactly known for being decent, but the fact that the producers came up with this ruse to obviously humiliate some random girl just because they could but they're in a very specific set of circumstances, and that terror went along with it and interviewed the mom and daughter immediately after intentionally humiliating the girl on national TV was, and still is, fucking deranged to me. Barbara Walters. She used to get some of the biggest interviews in the world and was well respected. Then The View happened, and then total respect was lost when she pushed back on Corey Feldman for outing how rampant sexual assault was in Hollywood. Now in hindsight we find out Barbara Walters was in Jeffrey Epstein's circle of friends and was certainly aware, if not worse. How she responded to Corey Feldman has bothered me for years. It was really awful. He came out and was brave enough to say that this abuse was going on, and she treated it so badly, basically told him to shut up because he was accusing very powerful people of bad things, and he was like, yes, I am, because they are doing these things, and she should have been more supportive toward him. It was awful. People treat him like he's a joke because he was a child star and is a little out there. But he's also a guy who suffered some pretty fucked up stuff and has spoken out about it. His accounts shouldn't be discounted just because he comes off as a little cookie elsewhere. Wendy Williams made fun of victims of murder, sexual assault, encouraged a woman to trick her husband into having another child, etc. Wendy Williams is literal trash. Ellen gets cancelled when it was revealed she was a bitch off camera, but somehow Wendy is allowed to stay on the air. Dr. Phil. He was a client where I worked several years back. He and his entire entourage are the very definition of entitled cock thistles. Something always has seemed off to me about that guy. If you want to share any specific stories or things he did, I'd love to hear it. I mean, you can just watch his show, which is him exploiting mentally unstable people for views while not even being a licensed doctor. Any Scientologist. I pity some of them, but OMG, what an awful log. Fuck Danny Masterson. Such a disappointment. Butch Hartman. Love his work, but the guy is totally ducking nuts. His art isn't that good a lot of the time because he half-asses things. I feel bad for the people who spend over $100 to get commissions from him. Honestly, calling it half-assing is giving him way too much credit. A while back, he did a commission of some animated character. He literally found the wiki image for that character, traced it, and called it a day. The wiki image had an error in it where the character had two right hands. He, of course, obliviously copied this error too. Like, how do you duck up something that basic in a professional gig you're taking money for? As a kid I liked the Dr. Oz show, but I lost all respect after finding out he was actually just a rego-blown nuthead who claims to be America's doctor, but he didn't even vaccinate his own kids. Edit. His wife was the one who had a say in the kids' vaccinations. Snake oil salesman. My mill used to keep a journal and take notes on his shows, but drive. Oz says, who off? Every time I find out fear Scientologists can't do it. Those people should be in prison. Elizabeth Moss. Now I can't finish Handmaid's Tale. The really shitty one for me was Michael Pena. Not just a Scientologist. A Danny Masterson supporting Scientologist. Fuck Scientology. And fuck Scientologists. Gwen Paltrow. Goop is so anti-science, I just hate everything. Ian Watkins, the singer of Lost Prophets. Why? He likes to diddle kids. Diddling kids is putting it very lightly. Fuck that guy. Yeah. That's like saying Hitler was a bit naughty, isn't it? Roman Polanski won a couple Academy Awards, even though has been a fugitive in the US for over 40 years for drugging and raping a 13-year-old, and has been accused of similar predatory behavior by women has worked with. Kelly. I loved listening to his music when I was younger, but hearing all of these stories about how he is basically a predator to underage girls is very unsettling. The fact he even married a girl who wasn't even of legal age was gross. At least he went to pee. Risen for it. Jenny McCarthy. What a bitch of a mess. Her continued insistence that autism is caused by vaccines is reprehensible. The doctor who started that lie was thoroughly debunked, but she just keeps on keeping on. And turns out her son doesn't have autism, but some other developmental disability. Chris Brown after he beat up Rihanna. I could never listen to his music after that. I'm actually surprised he is still relevant and making music. Allen Ginsberg. I loved his poetry up until I found out he was a member of NAMBLA. WTF? For real? Yes. He described sex between men and boys as an ancient human love story. Apostrophe. Yet he still gets his poems in textbooks that we give to children. I used to listen to Simple Plan a lot as a teen and sometimes still do. I recently found out that their bassist David Desrosiers was accused by a few women of sexual misconduct, including grooming a minor for sex. He confessed and apologized, left the band in 2020, and sought mental help, while the band also apologized to their fans for his behavior, and they don't seem to condone his actions. It blows knowing that one of the members of my childhood favorite band turned out to be like this. But I'm glad that the rest of the band held him accountable and didn't make any excuses for him. No, I didn't know this. Now I'm bummed, too. Chevy Chase. Never really a fan of him pre-community, but I at least respected him for putting in the work. But after hearing how much of a D-bag and how difficult to work with made me lose that respect. I hear he's a GDB, a no good B. Jared Leto after all the shit he pulled on the Suicide Squad set. I like to think his conduct is mostly the reason he got edited out of 90% of the movie, although the director won't cop to that. Yeah, even Heath Ledger didn't go as extreme as he did. He knew how to pull off one of the greatest performances of all time in a way that wouldn't hurt others around him. He even had his limits. The role is no excuse. Mark Hamill did an incredible job playing the Joker for many years, and was a complete gentleman. James Corden. Used to think he was slightly funny a long time ago, then realized he is a massive cunt. First off, I'm old, but O.J. Simpson. He had it all. I'm young and just watched that American Crime Story about him. That shit was crazy. The show presented it very neutral, then at the end kind of like everyone knew they had proof, but the jury still let him off. Then the fallout and stuff after was crazy. I could understand why it was such a big cultural moment. I was 9 when all that stuff was going on, so recently started looking into the case more. Definitely check out O.J. Simpson, Made in America after you're done with the mini-series. It's very well done. Surprisingly, I haven't seen Jeffree Star or Shane Dawson, but definitely both of them. Both of them have done enough BS to fill a book. I do believe that people change and can better themselves, but in my opinion neither of them have or ever will. They're two people I wouldn't miss if they decided to step away from their platforms. I remember when Jeffree Star was coming up on MySpace, a few friends would post about him, so I checked him out, and he was always just so nasty, personality wise, and unfun. It doesn't even feel like he's playing a character, he's just a shitty, bitchy person. I never understood why anyone would be interested in him. His aesthetic is not worth the hype. Yeah, and he starts drama just to be relevant. Tom Cruise. He knows what happened to Shirley Miscavige, and he benefits from free labor of Scientologist members. People who are forced to work without pay. That and his take on depression not being real. He can open an umbrella up his butt for that. As someone who deals with depression, I ducking wish it wasn't real. I honestly don't like Ellen DeGeneres because she likes to make fun of younger people that don't know how to do certain things. A youtuber I lost all respect for is Minilad. Turns out Minilad likes to play with mini-lads. Edit. Thanks for the silver. Evil Nevil. His exact words when my 10-year-old self asked him for an autograph were, "Get this kid out ta here, dick." He also kidnapped his future wife, as in took her from home unwillingly, but he made bikes jump real good. He's from Montana. Wife kidnapping is a custom in Montana. Wife kidnapping is not the custom in Montana. Leslie Jones. My ex's mom worked for SNL, and she was the only cast member who not only refused to speak to us when we were backstage, but also made sure to make us feel like a nuisance any chance she got. Doesn't sound so bad if we were grown adults visiting mommy at SNL, but this was when we were like 14 to 15 years old. I remember it made the whole night so strange because we felt like a disruption even though it was only the dress rehearsal. So yeah, I don't like her. Also Alison Mack from Smallville. That sex cult stuff. Wow. Yes. Was so sad when I found out what she did. By my username you might guess that I'm a fan of Chloe on the show. Heard about what she did 2 weeks after making this act. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more videos.